Chapter 66, The Sea Battle. Julius Fox disembarked from the speedboat, directing the security chief to switch out the passengers with trained combat personnel. Their mission was to join the hovercraft in confronting the professor. Fox specifically asked for visual confirmation of the fishing boat's disappearance from the water's surface. To avoid potential witnesses, the security chief chose the center of the lake as the battleground. The storm had turned the water into a boiling witch's cauldron. Lightning repeatedly cut through the dark sky, followed by earth-shaking thunder echoing across the surrounding hills. The speedboat on the left and the hovercraft on the right were guiding Frida, the fishing boat, toward its grim fate. They had opted not to use firearms, instead planning to sink the weighty fishing boat to the lake's depths. The goal was to make it seem like a tragic accident, blaming the vicious storm for Frida's demise. However, the professor had seen through their scheme and took action. He suddenly accelerated the boat's engine, executing a slick maneuver to turn the boat around and head toward the castle. After a brief moment of uncertainty, the speedboat circled back and positioned itself in front of Frida, cutting off its path. Meanwhile, the hovercraft took up a position behind the fishing boat, effectively closing off any escape route. The captains of the speedboat and the hovercraft checked their radar screens and agreed to proceed with their malicious plan on the spot. To attract the attention of the inhabitants of the lake area, the professor had already illuminated all the lights on his boat. The music system was playing in repeat mode the third movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata on the piano at full volume. By forcing the enemy to engage in a less advantageous location, the professor had already won the first battle of the war. By turning on the spotlights and playing loud music, he fought a psychological battle to establish his dominance. The speedboat's captain hadn't anticipated this move. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, he sped toward Frida at full throttle, hoping to intimidate the fishing boat into fleeing. But to his surprise, the professor accelerated as well to crash into the speedboat. Panic set in for the captain, who instinctively pressed the red button, launching a missile toward the fishing boat. The missile went through the windshield, which had already been shattered by the security chief's machine gun, whizzed past the professor's head at close range, and flew out through the shattered rear window. Striking the hovercraft behind Frida, the missile transformed it into a blazing inferno. Stunned and paralyzed, the speedboat's captain could only watch as Frida, laden with crates of dynamite, rammed into the speedboat. Meanwhile, the professor had prepared for the impact, and at the very last moment, he leaped into the water. Azer sprinted toward the boathouse of the U.S. villa, where they had concealed the bike. The ground quaked beneath his feet with each thunderous explosion. From a distance, he kept an eye on the gardening cart. After a long sled ride, up and down the hilly lawns, it had arrived in the bushes and brought Alvaro to safety. Azer turned and glanced at the building. Towering flames shot out of the windows and were about to engulf the entire castle. He finally arrived at the boathouse. The entrance to the land was blocked by a closed and locked gate. He grabbed a rock of substantial size and smashed it on the padlock. On his second try, the lock gave way. Stepping inside, his fears were confirmed. The professor was nowhere to be seen. Passing by the motorcycle, he continued down to the water's edge. Gazing at the lake, he hoped to catch a glimpse of Frida. He pricked his ears up for the piano music from the boat, but in vain. The storm raged relentlessly, hitting the beach with violent waves. Azer was torn between waiting for the professor or taking the bike up the road to meet Topaz. All of a sudden, the gate of the boathouse creaked open, revealing a figure silhouetted by the burning castle behind it. It could have been one of the castle guards, who had pursued Azer for revenge. Yet, to his surprise, it was the professor, donning a life jacket. In a shaky voice, he exclaimed, "We did it. I knew we could force the fox out of its den." Reaching under the life jacket, the professor retrieved a half-empty whiskey bottle, remarking, "This is all that remains of Frida." Popping the cap, he took a gulp, then extended the bottle to Azer, adding, "It's not over yet. We've driven the fox out, but now we must cut off its escape route." Azer followed suit, taking a swig of whiskey before handing the bottle back to the professor. Despite being submerged in water, the bike started up smoothly on the first try. Azer swung the door wide open, allowing the professor to guide the bike out of the boathouse. Sitting in the sidecar, he marveled at how easily the World War II veteran could ascend the hill. They opted for a shortcut through the park, illuminated by the blaze of the castle. They approached the road, stopped by the roadside, and observed the stream of cars speeding away. The professor inquired, "Where should we rendezvous with your girlfriend?" Azer responded, "Somewhere along the road, I hope." It was uncertain whether Topaz had managed to escape the burning castle.